Kindness, an artist's resource commissioned by G39, Warp, and produced by Gaia Redgrave. A film about welcoming people who are autistic and experience sensory processing difficulties into the gallery setting. Autism is a lifelong disability that affects how a person relates to the world and communicates with other people. It is a spectrum condition, which means everyone experiences autism differently. People who have a diagnosis of autism can experience differences in thinking, as well as social, emotional, and sensory differences. There are many terms for autism. Some of the most common are ASD, or Autism Spectrum Disorder, Asperger's, and neurodiverse. People are often described as on the spectrum, and some people use the terms high or low functioning in autism. Autism is one word attempting to describe millions of different stories. Approximately half of those who are autistic do not have learning difficulties, and some have a very high IQ. Research shows that just over 1 in 100 people experience autism. However, other studies indicate that this figure may be much higher. Only 16% of autistic adults are in full-time employment, with just 32% in paid work of any kind. Autism is not a mental illness, but a neurological difference. It is not just something experienced by children, but adults too. Remember, autistic children grow into autistic adults. Being autistic is not lesser, it is a difference. Sensory processing differences are a very common aspect of autism. They are real, intense, can be distressing and cause overwhelm in adults and children. Sensory processing differences are unseen but always present, even though they can fluctuate. They can be experienced in opposites. For example, a person can experience both elevated and reduced sensitivity to differing things. Sensory processing differences are not a person being awkward, difficult, or picky. Potential linked experiences can include mental health differences such as high levels of anxiety, depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Some people have learning difficulties, others are considered gifted. Many have sensory processing difficulties. Some other neurodiverse conditions which can present alongside autism are ADD, attention deficit disorder, ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and Tourette syndrome. Challenges and differences can be present in many areas, such as sensory. A person may avoid or seek out loud sounds, bright lights, or moving lights, smells, tastes, and textures to touch and feel, as well as various forms of movement or activity to stay calm. All sounds can be experienced at the same volume, loud, and they may not be able to tune out background noise. Communication. A person may find it difficult to engage in small talk or make eye contact. They may appear uninterested in what you are saying, even when they are listening intently. They may have difficulty understanding other people's intentions and meaning in conversation, as they take comments literally and do not understand metaphors. There is a need for clarity and understanding of detail. Often people who are autistic prefer honesty, straightforward language, and wording that is to the point. Emotions. A person may not recognize their own emotions or the emotions or facial expressions of others. Organisation. There is a general need for structure and planning. Surprises can cause fear and emotional overload for someone who is autistic. Hyperfocus and focus on detail. Someone who is autistic may find difficulty in seeing the bigger picture or moving from one task to another. They can be completely absorbed in one task for many hours. Bodily sensations. There can be difficulty in recognizing bodily messages such as thirst, hunger, or needing to go to the toilet, especially when engrossed in doing something else. There can be reduced or hyper bodily sensations. Results of these difficulties can be far-reaching. Overload can cause meltdowns and breakdowns in both adults and children. This can present as anything from crying and anger to complete shutdowns mentally and physically, where someone is unable to speak and may only engage in repetitive movement such as rocking. Anxiety and depression are common, as well as masking to fit in or cope, especially in social situations. People often misunderstand the unwritten rules of social expectations. This, coupled with sounding abrupt or rude due to being honest or hyper-efficient, can cause difficulty in making and keeping friends and create feelings of loneliness and not fitting in. Masking is particularly common in women and girls, but not exclusively. It is used consciously and unconsciously to cope with daily life and appear as what might be considered normal. It causes excessive tiredness and overload. People may avoid phone calls or other forms of communication due to the anxiety that they cause. Sometimes people can appear drunk due to vestibular or balance issues. Pain and discomfort is a common problem from touch. However, intense emotions can also cause long-lasting physical pain. Persistent nausea is also an issue for some. If someone isn't diagnosed until later in life, autistic differences can result in post-traumatic stress disorder. Maintaining a balance takes time and effort. Time planning and routine are important for predictability. A sensory diet may be employed to input a calming influence and to reset. This may include repetitive movement, eating or chewing specific foods, introducing settling lights or no lights into the environment. Everyone's sensory diet is different, and it is as important to well-being as eating. Those who under-respond to stimuli may require physical exercise to be able to focus and concentrate. Stimming is used consciously or unconsciously by many to calm or focus. Such actions may include fidgeting while seated or standing, chewing, flapping hands, rubbing fingers together, etc. Time to focus on interests is especially important. Some people require time doing activities that involve patterns, lists, or ordering. Often weighted blankets, proprioceptive exercises, or tightly fitted clothing are used to calm and get a sense of self. The use of noise-cancelling headphones, earplugs, and caps or tinted glasses to shield from lights are useful. Avoidance of overstimulation is key. There are many positive aspects to autism, such as loyalty and honesty, the ability to notice detail that others may not, and remember processes, as well as the ability to focus intently and amass a vast knowledge of a subject that is of interest. Those who are autistic can often find solutions to problems that may not be seen by someone who is neurotypical or not autistic. Gallery space poses many challenges. The hard surface accentuates every sound emitted from visitors and the artwork itself. The light can be too bright due to most surfaces being white and the use of spotlights. There is sometimes a change in lighting due to the requirements of some works, for example film or installation. The walls are often newly painted and smell. The space is unpredictable. Sound or visual input, movement, may switch on unexpectedly due to a work being shown on a loop. There is also an expectation of appropriate behaviour, whatever that is. All this, coupled with the usual difficulties associated with being in a public space, for example, communication with others, perfumes, cigarette or e-cigarette fumes, or the smell of washing powder on clothes, small children being vocal, mobile phone notifications, etc., can make galleries very challenging and exhausting places. Also, not to forget the associated facilities, such as air fresheners in the toilet spaces and cleaning fluids. Every small thing adds up, pushing a person further to the point of overload. When attending an opening event in a gallery space, these issues are vastly multiplied. The noise created by numerous people talking in the gallery space can sound like jets taking off. There may be extra smells from more fragrances, food, or alcohol. There is an expectation to interact, look interested, conform to social norms, and maybe even hug people. This can be hugely challenging when autistic. Imagine trying to socialise when you can't hear what anyone is saying because every sound is melding into a roar. You feel sick and confused. Your heart is pounding. You are exhausted and just want to lie down and sleep. You need to self-regulate with exercise, but have made the assumption that it's not appropriate behaviour because someone in the past has criticised or laughed at you. Your muscles are starting to shut off and your words are slurred due to standing next to someone who is wearing perfume. So you mask to look as if you're okay and considered normal. You feel far from normal. You feel far from yourself. You need to leave, but you don't know how to, as someone is talking to you and you are expected to be there because you are the artist exhibiting, or networking is important to be able to get on. You can finally leave. You get in the car and cry. You need to sit for a long while as you are unable to drive home. Eventually you get home, exhausted and fragile. The next day is a blur. You are unable to function, and this may be the case for a few days. Reimagining the gallery experience for those who are autistic or have sensory processing difficulties. Consider offering a visiting time that is low in sensory input, including low lighting and quiet, with gentle warnings that the end of the time is coming. Make sure that there is time to leave before the environment changes. Provide a space away from the gallery that is calming and low in sensory input. Ensure any nearby lights or sounds do not impact on the calming space. Provide warnings of sensory input that may be loud, changing, or unexpected. Consider the impact of recorded and environmental sounds, smells, lights, etc. Offer samples of textured aspects of the exhibitions for visitors to feel or smell. This could be fabrics, paints, and other surface finishes or materials used in the exhibit construction. Have ear defenders available to visitors to minimise sound input. Consider how works could be experienced differently. For example, sound through headphones or turned off completely at times, and experienced through an app on a personal device, either in situ or remotely. Maybe a written transcript could be provided instead of listening. Virtual tours can be useful where questions can be asked of a live person. Accept and embrace difference in behaviour, such as an intense emotional response and repetitive movements. Provide an opportunity to ask questions, especially those that may seem at odds with the work. Working with autistic artists and people who experience sensory processing issues. Do read and implement any access information the artist may have prepared. Have an open dialogue and ask questions if necessary. Discuss requirements and difficulties experienced by the artist and how to fully accommodate them. Provide clear communication about actions and requirements in a timely manner and allow time for questions and clarifications. It can be useful to provide dates when things will happen and stick to them. Try not to change plans, but if this needs to happen, give as much notice as possible and a valid explanation. Offer virtual meetings as an alternative and ask which medium is most suitable, such as telephone or video. Don't expect an artist to attend events in person. Be open to new and different ways of adding content and to possibly working with an artist's representative. Provide quiet space away from overstimulation, time for sensory regulation, and prior warning of additional sensory input, for example, building work, painting, or fire alarm tests. Be accepting of behaviour that may seem different, such as difficulty sitting still, repetitive movement, humming, speaking loudly or quietly, or an appearance of ignoring you speaking, and don't be shy of emotion. Be aware that some people will feel that they need to mask to be seen as professional. This causes exhaustion and overwhelm. Genuine reassurance that someone can be themselves is a good thing. Remember, the challenge of working with people for someone who is autistic can be incredibly hard. Never underestimate the effort that is required to do this. The bottom line, ask. People who experience autism and/or sensory processing difficulties are all different with differing needs. Overload can be embarrassing, misunderstood, It can cause post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health challenges. Not all have a diagnosis. Really, it's just about being kind.